You know, video game movies started to gain a little bit momentum over the past couple of years, and especially with this year's news that Tom Holland's gonna be in Uncharted, and then Oscar Isaac is getting cast as Solid Snake. It sounded pretty good, but then I watched Monster Hunter and, well, we're back to square one. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're talking all about Monster Hunter, the live-action adaptation made for film based on the popular video game franchise of the same name. I have not played any of these games. It's not my cup of tea, but it looks cool, it's detailed, and honestly the monsters are awesome, especially from the screenshots and the streams I've seen on Twitch. It's directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, yes, the guy who directed the Resident Evil movies. It's starring Milla Jovovich, Tony Jaa, Meagan Good, and T.I. The summary of the film is not very much like the video games at all. It's about a group of soldiers led by Lieutenant Artemis, played by Milla Jovovich, and they are transported into a new world. This new world inhabited by these monsters. Now they must fight for their way to get back to the old world. It's okay. It's definitely generic sounding, but trust me, the movie's even more generic than how that summary sounds. The film comes in at a cool, crisp, I'm just kidding, an hour and 43 minutes, and it's a $60 million film. $60 million. My goodness. Now guys, before I go ahead and tell you the one thing I did like and everything else that didn't work with this film, if it's your first time here at the channel and you love talking about movies and TV just like I do, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on the bell so you don't miss out on early reviews just like this. And if you haven't, smash that like button and get loud in the comments below and let me know what you guys think of this film. Are you going to see it when it releases in theaters? Are you not? Are you really not going to see it? What do you even feel about them adapting this for the big screen? Okay, well guys, it's time to get into the one thing I liked. The monsters look pretty darn cool sometimes, and so does the hunter's long sword. There is a Diablo in this movie, which is a popular monster in the Monster Hunter franchise, and man, it did look massive, enormous, intimidating at times, and it goes under the sand, so it's pretty darn tough to defeat. I thought it was done pretty well. Everything else surrounding it wasn't, but I felt like Diablo looked pretty cool. And then there's the hunter, played by Tony Jaa. He's got a mysterious past. He doesn't necessarily speak too often, and when he does, well, let's just say there's a monster coming, because he's always pointing out the different monster names. Now, his gear was kind of sick, and I liked his longsword. It looked detailed. There was an intricate design. You can tell that some of the budget did go in designing the costumes and making the props look a little identical to the actual video game. And that's about it, guys. Seriously, everything else is a complete failure on every level for this movie. The movie starts off with our group of soldiers, and man, everything that they say, all of their sentences, every bit of dialogue is generic. It's so disappointing. And as much as I want to say it's a writing issue, which we'll talk about in a little bit, guys, the acting here is not even decent. It's not even meh. It's below that. I really enjoy Milla Jovovich and Tony Jaa as actors. They kick a lot of butt, and I know they're capable of putting on good performances. But in this movie, they give some of the worst performances probably of their career. And yes, they're victims of a really bad script, but guys, man, they just didn't sell me. They come off as generic and uninspired, and they do try to play up tension and emotion, but they don't really succeed. And then when you scroll down the cast, or even if you just watch the first 15 minutes, you're going to notice Meagan Good, T.I., and I thought, oh my gosh, this is kind of cool. We know T.I. can act for the most part. I mean, he plays a certain character, he's himself really, and he's funny, especially from Ant-Man. And then you have Meagan Good, who is a legend. And in this movie, well, guys, T.I. can't deliver a line of dialogue to save his life, unfortunately, and the humor that, I don't know, his comedic timing here is just so off. It's like, what happened? You went from Ant-Man to this. It's so frustrating. And Meagan Good is not nearly in the film enough, and when she is, she's the victim again of some generic dialogue, so it's not her fault. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt because of her previous track record, but man, it's just a darn disappointment to see them both, some quality, I would say, actors as of late, and they just, man, fell into some really bad roles. And then there's the writing. Guys, Paul W.S. Anderson is known for unfortunately having scripts that aren't layered at all, and I don't come to expect Oscar level writing, but here it's completely shallow. This is one of the most poorly written movies I have ever witnessed, and I'm scratching my head at the decision to make this a D-level action movie set in this universe instead of focusing on the monsters, their origin, and even the hunter. For goodness sake, the hunter had a mysterious past, and how do you not dive deeper into that? Focus the film on the monster hunter. But no, Fortunately, we get generic soldier talk and all this subplot that we don't need. It's all just fat that could have been trimmed off because, again, the film was almost 2 hours. And then there's the humor and the awful one-liners. Man, can't tell you guys enough. I didn't laugh once. Actually, no, I did laugh at that really bad third act. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's move on to the editing, the score, and the directing here. On a technical level, guys, this movie really just strikes out every single time. There are so many cuts. The camera was constantly going back and forth between both of our leads during action, and that made it hard to track exactly what was going on. It wasn't just nauseating, it was headache-inducing. I was trying to keep track of what's happening, even the hand-to-hand combat sequences. Tony Jaa is so good at martial arts, and then you want to put him in this kind of film that's cut to heck, and it's just edited so poorly to where it doesn't feel impactful. So that's my issue as well. This movie just kept cutting to try to add tension, and it failed. The score also has this techno vibe which didn't fit in the slightest. It's really out of place, it's distracting, overbearing, and honestly, it doesn't fit. That's the biggest issue, where you're getting maybe into a certain groove of the film and they're trying to set a certain scene, and all of a sudden this techno score comes out of nowhere and just pulls you directly out of the film. And if you don't know Paul W.S. Anderson's track record, well, let me be the first to tell you, he's not very well known for making good video game adaptation films. Well, he does have Resident Evil. That first film I actually really like. It's everything after that that I wish I could forget. Paul W.S. Anderson continues to give video game adaptations a bad name, and that's the thing for me, is video game films are starting to trend in a direction where they are going to be concrete, they're going to be solid, they're actually going to have substance. I mean, Alicia Vikander did an amazing job as Lara Croft, and then we get reports of Metal Gear Solid starring Oscar Isaac, come on now, and then Tom Holland, of course, in Uncharted. It all starts to line up, and then you run into a roadblock with Monster Hunter. Now, I can't tell you whether or not he's played Monster Hunter, but if he did, this doesn't prove it. A buddy of mine actually told me one of the joys of Monster Hunter is getting all of your gear together and then going and fighting these big bad monsters, and it sounds so fun. There's a story in and of itself. But here, the movie just felt like it was going through the motions. Oh, and earlier when I said the monster design was cool, it was for the first half of the film. Then the CGI just kind of looks poor. It looks like they might have ran out of budget even at some points. That egregious green screen at the end of the film was just awful. But with Rathalos, the big bad monster, this is your home run hitter. I feel like it came out dull and flat. None of Rathalos, for me, looked as intimidating as Diablo, and that's a problem because Rathalos is a huge freaking dragon. Oh, and did I mention the green screen at the end being awful? And then one of the laziest moves that video game adaptation films can do is they set up for what they think will be a sequel. It's a cliffhanger ending. Guys, there's no way they're gonna greenlight a sequel for Monster Hunter, right? So overall, you guys, Monster Hunter is one of those films that you can definitely skip this holiday season. Surprisingly enough, they moved it up from their Christmas Day release date to December 18th, and that's a little shocking because maybe they could have just continue to delay this and then release it in January, because we all know a lot of studios like to release their movies in January that they know might not do too well at the box office. Considering the pandemic though, they probably just wanted to get this out there in the market. The thing is, Monster Hunter was just generic. It was bland. It was a disappointment because this universe is ripe for some good storytelling, impressive visuals, and some captivating action sequences. Unfortunately, I left shaking my head thinking to myself, this is the best that Paul W.S. Anderson could have pulled out of his hat. I guess I need to rethink that question though, because Paul W.S. Anderson, again, doesn't have a good track record with video game movies, and this has set back video game movies by years. Milla Jovovich and Tony Jaa were just wasted in this movie, and then you have the supporting cast, which is again non-existent after the first 15 minutes. I wish I could come to you guys and tell you this movie was better than I expected it to be, but unfortunately Monster Hunter is not only one of the worst movies of the year, it might be the worst film I've seen in 2020. Alrighty, you guys, well, there you have it. That's my real review of Monster Hunter, but I want to know what you have to say about this film. Did you like it? Did you hate it? And if you haven't seen it already, are you going to try and see this in theaters when it releases? Let me know in the comments below, guys. Smash that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and tap on the bell, guys. We're so close to 3,000, and it's all because of you. That's our end of the year goal, and trust me, we got a lot more content to come before the end of the year. Mandalorian reaction this week, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. We're talking Chadwick Boseman all weekend long. I cannot wait. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.